everyone, and welcome to another Things We Said Today, where we talk about the Beatles, past, present, and to come. I'm your host, Steve Marinucci. I'm a contributor to Billboard and Access.com, and I want to welcome you, and let me introduce who's with us today. They're the East Coast has got some weather problems, but we are fortunate to have with us in Pennsylvania the executive, everybody say yes, executive editor of Beatle Fan magazine and longtime contributor or co-host of Fest for Beatle Fans. I guess I can say that. Mr. Al Sussman.
No, not a co-host.
Not co-host?
I've been involved with it for, since the beginning.
Okay. Mr. Al Sussman. Hello, Al.
Hi, Steve. Hello, everybody.
Oh, I tried. And also in Connecticut, that's also with us today, the host of the Beatles show Every Little Thing, Mr. Ken Michaels. Hello, Ken.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
I'm fine. And missing from our group today is Mr. Alan Cosin, who is covering a classical show on the night we're taping this because it actually got moved up a day because of the snow. Where this is Monday, the 13th, and there are snow warnings, snow alerts out for the East Coast as I'm speaking here. So we're very lucky to have this even together tonight. We almost did not do it, but thank you guys for making it. And joining us from the Big Apple is that
somewhat south of the Big Apple.
South of the Big Apple? Oh.
Yeah, actually, due west.
Due west of the Big Apple?
West.
Who has a long list of credentials he gave me just before, and it probably could have been even longer if we'd have waited another 5 minutes. The Beatle Branch writer and contributor, Beatle fan writer and contributor, and co-MC of the Fest for Beatle Fans, the one, the only, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Frangione. Give him a big hand! Yay!
Yay!
Welcome.
Always a pleasure to sit in on a session with you guys, and of course Alan in absentia. But always fun to be on the Things We Said Today show.
Thank you. And we are going to talk about, since we have 3 people here who were involved with the Fest, we are going to talk about that. The first one, we're going to talk quickly about some news items. The first one we'll talk about is actually happened today, where Paul McCartney announced he's releasing a cassette of the 3 demos with Elvis Costello from Flowers in the Dirt, and that is the 3 songs are I Don't Want to Confess, Shallow Grave, and Mistress and Maid. And guys, let me start with Al. Al, what do you think of this?
Well, actually, this at least partially solves a little bit of the controversy that's been swirling around the Flowers in the Dirt archive collection, because of the fact that the whole thing with basically one disc's worth of the material being available only through a download. Well, now you have three tracks from there that will be available in a physical form of some kind. Let's put it that way.
But not on CD, but on cassette.
Not on CD, but on a physical form of some kind. Some people probably will pish-posh that, but
well, I mean, technically speaking, it's a lower fidelity format than the digital that will be available to the.
Well, of course, we don't know. When was the last time you listened to a cassette?
Long time ago.
Do you even have the ability to do it?
Right.
I do too. Yeah.
Some people. Yeah. There were people commenting on Facebook today that yes, they do have cassette players, and so some people still do. But
and they, for all we know, they may make this on, a much higher quality, tape than they used to.
But that isn't going to change the fact that these are rough demos. They're not studio quality. They're not what I would call studio quality tracks at all.
Well, some people find that appealing.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
True. I mean, some people
find that they are rough. So.
Right, and what you're doing is you're taking a rough quality track and you're making it even rougher. to a certain extent. I mean, I've heard the 3 tracks, and they sound like they came off of cassettes.
Well,
they're not.
Let me ask.
Go ahead.
Let me ask Tom. Does this at all? Because you did a presentation on Flowers in the Dirt at the fest, and we know that that you're definitely opposed to the download only format of that last batch of discs. Does this at all, at least partially, assuage your?
I don't think so. I think it gives the collectors something to get. I imagine you'll see later in the day on Record Store Day loads of people selling them for obviously inflated prices.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, some of us old war horses still have. I mean, I know I have a cassette deck which I use only for transferring old cassettes onto CD.
Right.
What else would you do with it? You're certainly not going to find a car with a cassette player.
And it's and it was going to be. I mean, there was no price release today, so we don't know.
I don't imagine it will be a lot of money. I mean,
I wouldn't think so either.
The appeal here is going to be, I think, only as a collectible as opposed to an audio piece for the archive. Because think, who's going to go buy that? I'm thinking anyone who's going to do that, and I don't know if you guys have ever done the Record Store Day thing, getting up in the morning, waiting in line, all kinds of, buying all kinds of Stooges records, whatever else is coming out that day. But people who would collect that, who are McCartney fans, my guess they're going to buy the Flowers in the Dirt box set, and we'll do the download. I mean, certainly I'm going to do the download and put them onto a CD so that it's portable and permanent and archived and all that good stuff. If I come across one of those cassettes, I don't imagine it's something I'd play. It'd be like having just like a novelty piece.
Right.
Okay.
But I wouldn't play it on the cassette.
No, I don't think very many. I think anyone who said, put it this way, anybody out there who says, "Wow, those are 3 songs I gotta hear," if they are that level fan, you can bet they're buying the box that has the other 9 or 10 demos as well.
Right.
I don't think anyone's going to seek this out to say, okay, here it is. Here's the Holy Grail, the Rosetta Stone. This is what I've been looking for. I don't need the other 9. Anyone who wants this, I think, is going to already have purchased the box set.
Okay. I would think there are going to be people that'll look for it for that, and not buy the box set. But I think basically you're right, though. I think most people will. But and the tracks 2 of the tracks are not on the album. I mean, that's the interesting part about it. So.
In fact, one of them I even said, "I don't want to confess, I never even heard about that song."
Right. That's not available in any form anywhere. And
right.
Shallow Grave was never certainly not on a McCartney record. It was on an Elvis record.
Right.
And Mistress and Maid, there is actually a really clean Mistress and Maid demo out there, but it's only Elvis. And it was got on one of his Ryko discs.
Well, I mean, and the 3 demos, both of them singing on it. So
well, obviously the draw here on Mistress and Maid is that it's both of them.
Right.
I've heard that one in particular has a couple of distortion, drenched pieces to it.
It does.
Yes, it's it is what it is. I'll tell you I think of the other 2. I don't want to confess. People seem to agree at the presentation I did at the fest. That seems like it was only about halfway there. It sounded like a lot of placeholders in the lyrics and even in the arrangement. But Shallow Grave isn't terribly far off of what Elvis ultimately put on the record. I mean, he obviously put a kind of a cool, funky rhythm underneath it, but from a structure point of view, that's pretty much what it is, and it's kind of neat to have.
Mm-hmm. It seemed to me that they started out a little bluesy. See, there was a little bit of a blues tinge on each of them for me. I mean, that's what I have to admit. I haven't heard the Elvis, the Elvis versions, but so in any event,
the more he gives, the more excited I get. So these are three things we weren't expecting.
Yeah, well,
So,
my guess is that he'll probably, if knowing his track record, there'll be a fourth cut just buried at the end somewhere. And then we'll all have to go get it. And then this whole conversation, you can just scratch it.
Right.
Exactly. There'll be an Easter egg of some kind.
Yeah.
Let's also talk about the tour announcement going back to Budokan, which really is not much of a big deal because he was there 2 years ago. But, I mean, the idea of him going back to Budokan where the Beatles played is, has a little bit of symbolism to it.
Long as he doesn't try to smuggle any pot.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, the question really beyond that is, where's he going after Japan? There's been no word, outside of Japan so far. That's all we've gotten. So
that's kind of unusual,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Considering a lot of time has passed since those first 3 dates were announced.
Right.
That we haven't heard anything since then.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Well, maybe he is cutting back then.
Well, there's also the album that he's supposedly working on. That's people
true.
are speculating. I've heard nothing from him, but people are thinking that it might come out this year. I mean, that probably has something to do with that, but maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? So
Yeah.
okay. Next, I'm going to leave the movie thing to last. Let's talk about Ringo's Access TV special that just got announced the other day. It's the 26th at 10 p.m. on Access TV, which if you have DirecTV, you have it. A lot of people say they don't have it, and I don't know who carries it outside of DirecTV. I would assume there are other cable companies. You might check with your cable company. But in any event, any comments about that show?
Well, I'm thrilled to see any all-star band concert on television, period, because that rarely ever happens.
Right.
And I really think that, especially for certain outlets like PBS, I don't know why some of the Ringo all-star DVDs haven't been on a channel like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the perfect avenue for, every time they have a pledge drive.
Pledge drives, yeah.
I would love to see, one of those shows televised because a lot of people still have never seen Ringo and the All-Stars. And in any of the lineups, you get a good taste of what it's all about. And this was, we should point out, this was from last year at Follinger Theater in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Right.
On June the 21st with his most recent lineup of the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So, I'd like more and more people to actually get to see people who have never been to an all-star concert what it's all about. So the more exposure, the better.
Yeah, it's an hour long, it's 58 minutes long, the actual footage, which means a lot of the songs are cut. But it does have a lot of Ringo, which may make a lot of people happy if there's a lot of Ringo and not so much everything else.
So, well, you'll probably be able to get one each from everybody, and whatever that leaves, 4, 5 from Ringo. I'm not even sure. I know I've gotten a couple things off AXS. They have commercials on that channel.
Yes,
right?
they do.
Okay, so is the 58 minutes is the net playing time, so the thing's going to be on?
Yes, it's the net playing time. Yeah,
well,
that does not include the commercials.
Okay, so a Ringo show from this outfit has been running 2 hours right on the nose. So it'll be half a show, and since everybody pretty much does 2 or 3, and Ringo does, maybe 8 or 9, it's probably right. Maybe 1 apiece from everybody, and 4 or 5 from Ringo, and that'll get us out.
Mm-hmm. And I think actually that will probably have a lot of people happy that there's more Ringo.
I don't think it makes sense to do all the Ringo songs, right? I mean, or
no.
Not do, I don't know, a Toto song or something. I think the whole angle is having the all-star band, and they do, you show what the show is about. It's a hit show.
Right.
So I like the idea. And this band, I mean, it's essentially the same one as we saw, on the DVD that came out from the Ryman, with the exception of Mark Rivera not being there. Mm-hmm. So, and the set list has changed only slightly. So maybe a couple of the Ringo songs will be the ones that have been swapped out, like Honey Don't and You're 16 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. and so that'll be pretty good. Anyway, okay.
Maybe there'll be a DVD from this too.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe that would be the case.
Right, that might have the complete show.
Since they bothered to edit it down, they might just do that.
I'm wondering if that makes sense with the same band. To have another DVD of essentially the same set. There is. And I think the Ryman one is. Let's face it. There's a tour CD or DVD from virtually every tour, every lineup. I think the Ryman one is the best of the lot. That was a great show. Plus, you had like one little All-Star Plus moment when Joe Walsh came out. So it kind of had that nice little kick to it too.
Right.
Not only that, but the camera work on that concert was fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great DVD. The Ringo the Ryman is a great DVD. A wonderful, wonderful show. I was at that show. I don't know if
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know.
That's true.
I celebrated my 50th birthday in 104-degree heat in Nashville.
Right.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, that was
a great show to see.
All right.
Good one. Yeah.
The other thing to talk about is the Liverpool police film that came out a couple weeks ago to possibly have, or I should say, Mike McCartney said that it may very well show himself and Paul McCartney and possibly John Lennon and George Harrison lying on the roof watching police maneuvers in Liverpool. And you guys saw the film, and I saw the film, and it's, the only thing about it's hard to, even if you look there, it's hard to determine if it's them or not. The fact that it might be them, I think, is kind of fun, but we've had better looking early films of them than this. That one where they were actually in the club was much better than this. But what do you guys? What we were talking about this before we started taping. What do you guys think?
Basically, nothing to say.
Okay.
This is the most non-newsworthy story.
Yeah, really.
Because how desperate do you have to be for some kind of Beatle news to say that this footage, which took place a block away from where the McCartneys lived on Forthland Road, could be Paul and John and Mike McCartney and possibly George, when even if you look at where they're telling you it is on the film, which I think is like 43 minutes in, if you look right there, you can't see, it might even be a speck, if anything. I mean, there's no way.
I disagree. What? I disagree, Ken, because number one, it's in many years from now. Number two, Mike McCartney, they got confirmation from Mike McCartney. And I think when you have both of those things together, I mean, without both of those, obviously you don't have anything. I mean, you have the possibility, but when you have McCartney saying he believed it was them, and then the quote from many years from now that I used in my story and that got printed up elsewhere, I think you have to give it a little bit of give Peter Hudson, who discovered it, a little bit of credit there. I do.
I'm not saying it's not them, but Mike didn't say it definitely was. He said it could
be. And
must be. It may be. He doesn't mean it must be. He means maybe.
I'm looking at the quote right.
It might be. It could be. It is.
It said that definitely could be us. I'm looking at his quote, but
definitely
I mean, well, I mean, I am not going to go as far as to say that, I think John Lennon and George Harrison were there, but I think it's very, very likely that it was he and Paul, and because of those two issues, I think when you have Mike McCartney saying, very likely that it was them, and you have Paul independently saying in many years to now what he did, I think you have to give it a little bit of credit there. So I think you have to.
Doesn't mean it's them. It doesn't mean it's them. Though.
Yeah.
No one's denying that they spent time on the roof at some point, but that doesn't mean in this film that it's them.
The shed on the back of the film is their house. That's their house. That's 20 Forthland Road.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
can you prove that it's them by looking at
Can I
it?
prove it's them? Because I wasn't.
Yeah.
No,
Can
I couldn't.
anyone prove it?
I mean, that picture, that frame that I used in the billboard shot with the circle. I mean, I looked at it, and you see what you see. I mean, that's the deal. No, I can't prove it's them, but I think you have to say, wow, it very likely might be them. I think you have to. It's not. I don't call. I know a couple of people I think actually said fake news, and I don't think that's true. It's not fake news, at least not the way.
It's no news. It's just there's
okay.
nothing.
All right. I'm
stuff.
looking. I mean, I know. Not speaking for Alan, but Alan said you could have a satellite photo with somebody in it that might have been McCartney too, and that's true. I mean, you have to look at it from that side too. That who knows, but the fact that it might be them was kind of interesting. Okay, all right. Now we can get past that. Now we can get on to the Fest for Beatle fans, and you guys were all there. Al, you went through you were all over the place, correct?
I was all over the place, but actually Tom and Ken, and Ken was only there one day, but even so, he and Tom saw a lot more of what was going on in the ballroom than I did. I think the only things I saw in the ballroom were the Saturday and Sunday night concerts, and Chuck Gunderson's Sunday morning, early bird special. Tom, who did the early bird special in the absence of Jude Kessler?
Jim Birkenstadt.
That was right. And because not sure how many of you know about this, but Jude Kessler, her father passed away.
Right, just before the fest.
Just before the fest.
She did not.
And so, as much as she loves being there, she, obviously was not able to come.
All right, let's go through it day by day. Let's start with Friday night. Tom, let's start with you. What happened on Friday night? Well,
the always entertaining trivia contest and Neptune games were very well attended. Actually, I think Friday was a good crowd. Obviously lighter than Saturday is going to be, but better than Fridays of recent past.
Okay. And
the hotel really made a difference. Its location, literally steps away from the PATH train from Manhattan. Very, very easy to get to. That obviously helped, get some people in the door. But the fact that it was, centrally located, very easy to get to, I think helped the attendance. And, that's not to take anything away from Mark Lapidus, who put together quite a show and quite a guest list. But the stage was set, both literally and figuratively for a good show. Friday night, again, I can speak to the attendance at the events I hosted was very, very good for the trivia and the Name That Tune. But I think one of the really, Friday is usually, for those of you who've been there, it's the main stage is really groups. Meet the authors, meet the guests, meet the photographers, etc. And then a dance party. Just not all the guests coming up and playing with the band, but just some good rock and roll and people dancing and dressed in 60s garb, and it's a lot of fun. I get to host that too. That's a good deal of fun for to kind of launch the show. But kind of the hit for me on Friday night was the late show of David Bedford, a good friend of all of ours from Liverpool. He's written a couple of wonderful books on the early Beatles and Liverpool, premiering a rough cut of a film that he's the associate producer of called Looking for Lennon. And it had a lot of really good news footage and home movies. And David, through his numerous contacts in Liverpool, got out to the rest of the Stanley family, the other, we always read about, the 5 strong women, but we only ever hear about Julia and Mimi, of course. I was sitting there watching this with another good friend of ours, Bruce Spicer, and I tapped him on the shoulder a couple times saying, is it me? I mean, am I getting that older? Have I never seen these pictures before? You know, John at school, John at at the beach with his friends, John in the backyard. A lot of good family stuff, like family album stuff, and it's set against the backdrop of 1940s Liverpool. Very, very informative and entertaining. It's still in rough form. It had a lot of, I guess it's called the thread running at the bottom, with the running times and stuff until the footage is officially incorporated into into the production. But what was interesting, and as was addressed in the post-screening Q&A with David, was there was original Beatle music in it and original solo Lennon music. I believe Working Class Hero was in there. And someone said, gee, did you have any difficulty with Apple, licensing the music or anything? And he said, well, not at all, because we didn't go to Apple. We went to, to Universal or Sony, whoever takes care of those things.
So they would have gone to Sony, I would think, Sony ATV.
Yeah. And he said they've not hit any red lights. And it's kind of weird. I remember here we were talking, you guys talking a minute ago, is something newsworthy. I remember when they licensed half a minute of a Revolver track for Mad Men.
Yeah, sure.
It was they paid a king's ransom for it. That was news in every sense.
Yes.
There was a big push on that. So I'm not sure if maybe I have no reason to think David isn't being forthcoming or anything, but I'm just not sure all those details have worked out. We could leave it at that. But still, my guess is he'll be coming to Chicago in the summer. And for those of you going to the fest, make sure you have an extra cup of coffee so you can stay up for the Friday night movie after the concert. That was really a treat. That was, for me, Friday night. That was the highlight.
Okay. You were just reminding me, Tom, of when Good Old Frida came out.
Yes.
They actually used Beatles recordings in there, and that was news. Believe me.
Yeah, right.
Well, you remember, though, Frida, when we asked her about that, she said, that she went in the door. And, she went with the producer, whose name escapes me right now. But
Ryan White.
Ryan White, thank you, Al. They went into Apple and took care of the licensing. And, let's face it, Apple, there's still four important voices there. And the sense I got from Frida was that they said, she hasn't ever sold them out or done anything like that, and it was their way of just kind of giving a nice nod to her and supporting her in this film. David, his connection to the band might be a little more tenuous than Frida was, but maybe that kind of stuff is freeing up a little bit, or becoming more accessible for licensing.
Interesting.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
That would be very nice.
Well, it depends on how loose it gets. I mean, we don't want to have Revolution Nike commercials anymore.
Yeah. Well, no, for a project like this, which is about one of them, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And it did add to it. It opened up to the strains of Working Class Hero, as I recall. Al, did you take the movie in, or had you already been at the bar?
I had already hit the bar, as a matter of fact.
Okay, well, in Chicago, make sure you have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And go see this thing. When it opened with that, and it's the guitar chords, obviously, I'm going, well, it sounds like the real thing, but I mean, I know I can play that song. Probably a million people can play that song. But certainly when the voice kicked in, that was it was the one and only. So.
Okay.
And not Mark Hudson.
I said one and only. Yeah. So.
Okay, Al, you didn't see this film, correct?
No.
Okay.
I, for whatever reason, I must have forgotten that it was on the schedule, or I was exhausted, or whatever.
It was the anti-early bird special. I mean, normally after the dance contest, that's it. That's usually the Friday night wrap. The dance concert. This was kind of like a value add at the end. Was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I enjoyed it.
All right, let's move on to Saturday, which of course is the big day.
The big day.
The big day. And okay, Tom, let's start with you again.
Okay. Well, our primary master of ceremonies, Ken Dashow from Q104 in New York, he wasn't able to get to the main ballroom till about 1:30 or so. So I was kind of anchoring that stage, and as we mentioned, Jude Kessler, was a last-minute swap out. So basically I introduced Jim Birkenstadt to talk about his book on the Beatle Who Vanished, which I'm sure many people know is being made into a movie.
Yes. Yep.
So was there to share some details on that exciting project. Then
so it's definitely a movie, because I also saw a TV series or something.
Film project.
The way because I talked to him, and the way the deal is that the Orbison brothers have the rights to do what they want to do with it, and so they're looking to dramatize it. Is basically the way it sits. So
yeah. Okay. Then Bruce Spicer came on and did his latest multimedia special about Sgt. Pepper. The weekend had had two prevailing themes as far as I was concerned. And maybe Al, you can comment on this, but certainly Sgt. Pepper's anniversary was everywhere you turned.
Oh, absolutely. Even on the I guess the logo for this particular fest was a Sgt. Pepper cover with a lot of the guests and staff people and various and sundry other people connected with the fest.
Yeah, and there were all kinds of nice pictures, posters, things like that, and just kind of a good buzz, about what will they do. This is kind of like we saw in 2014. We know Apple is not real big on tying things to anniversaries, but even they couldn't pass on 2014.
No way.
The strong word on the street, as it were, is that I don't know when this show is going to air, but the last week of March we should be hearing some more details, a little bit further than the speculation that's been running in a lot of the British papers about the reconfigured album and things. But Pepper was one overriding theme of the weekend. The other was, in a word, wings.
Yeah.
There were three wings on the card, which was Steve Holley and Lawrence Juber and Denny Seiwell, all of whom have been guests before, but each of whom had something new to add this year. Steve Holley has a new band that did a set of Beatles songs, which was great, and he also drums with a group called the Birds of Paradox, with a couple guys from Elephant's Memory. That was also a Saturday afternoon concert where they recreated the one-to-one concert for the 40th anniversary of that.
Tell me how I have not heard Birds of Paradox. Tell me what you think of them, Tom.
I think they're very, very good. Jeff Slate is the front man, New York City session guy, who's been around quite a bit. Very tuned in. Jeff also writes for Beatle Fan now and again. You'll see him do a feature piece here and there. But he's got Adam and Gary from the Elephant's Memory. So, I mean, just that for one-to-one obviously adds a nice air of authenticity. And Steve drums with them. So that was kind of nice. And then Lawrence Juber, again, a longtime friend of the fest, he had a new album out, his third installment of his acoustic Beatle arrangements. Denny Seiwell sat on a very interesting drummers panel.
Yes.
In the afternoon.
Yeah.
With Steve Holley and Chris from the house band and Billy. I want to get his name right. Amendola.
Amendola.
Yeah. From Modern Drummer magazine, talking about Ringo and some drum technicalities and things like that. It was really, really quite interesting.
Let me quickly, before we get too farther along, we did not mention Bruce Spicer's Sgt. Pepper book. You guys, I'm sure, know about this. Did he talk about this at the fest? Okay. He's just quickly, I'll just say he's doing a book of Sgt. Pepper memories, and he wants them from fans. And you can contribute to his book at Beatle.net. And there is not much time. I think there's only about maybe a week and a half.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, he basically wants to have most of the contributions in, probably by about the middle of next week.
Right. You have an article in there, Al.
Bill King and I each have a piece from the archives.
Right.
From Beatle Fan that'll be in there.
Pierce Hemmingson.
And Pierce, right.
And there are many, and there are others that are in there too. And as a matter of fact, I've got to get my act together and send him something too. But so go to Beatle.net if you want to send him a contribution for the book. Anyway, okay. Al, were you going to say anything about Saturday?
Well, no. Actually, probably Ken would probably have some comments about, especially all that was going on Saturday afternoon.
Ken?
Oh yeah. Well, I was in two main places: the Act Naturally room,
right,
where I was part of 3 different panel discussions, and then I was also in the main ballroom. And I just want to say very quickly about the main ballroom. You were talking before about Klaus Voormann. The interview that Ken Dashow did with him was excellent. And as far as I'm concerned, it was worth it just to see Klaus for that 1 hour on stage. It was very revealing. He talked about when he first heard the Beatles in Hamburg, and he actually said that he loved them so much as a live act. He prefers them as a live act to in the studio. Mm-hmm. And it's like such a different experience to see them live compared to what they did in the studio. And he was basically not a rock fan at all. Mm-hmm. He was a jazz lover. He really loved jazz. So it wasn't until he saw them in the club. And I also heard that he saw Rory Storm and the Hurricanes.
Right.
Might have been before the Beatles.
Mm-hmm. He probably did.
The whole experience of seeing them live is what made him the major fan that he was. And they always kept close, even when they weren't. If they were in England, John in particular would write to him a lot. And he talked about the Revolver album cover and that the Beatles gave him complete freedom to do whatever he wanted to do, which in a way is it's a benefit because you have this freedom, but it's also kind of tough to know where to start.
Yeah.
Without even being given a clue,
Did he? Now, this is curious to me because Chris Carter sent me an interview with Klaus, and Klaus said that Joe Walsh does not have the original cover. Did he say anything about that at the fest at all?
I don't remember him talking about the Joe Walsh cover. Because
a couple of years ago when they had that get together in Los Angeles that he was supposed to attend that he missed because he was ill, and that Ringo attended, that Carter hosted. They were all saying that was and Walsh thought he had the original cover. And in this interview, Klaus says it's not the original cover, and that's the first I've heard that it's not the original cover. So the question is, who has the original cover if it's not Joe Walsh?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, and I should probably get a hold of Chris and ask him if he followed that up. But
sounds like a job for the rock and roll detective.
There we
go.
Well,
indeed.
Or the rock and roll reporter, one of the two. Yeah. But anyway.
The thing with Klaus, though, is that there's so much history that he's got with the Beatles, and there's no way you can get everything in there in 1 hour on stage.
Right.
And when you talk about all the solo stuff, he really only talked about working with John, and in particular that he loved working on the Plastic Ono Band album. And he even said a quote from Ringo, that Ringo told Klaus, that the greatest power trio he was ever in was when he was with John Klaus on that album.
Mm-hmm.
Did
you talk about Live Peace in Toronto?
I don't remember him talking about that. I was kind of hoping he'd bring up All Things Must Pass or the concert for Bangladesh.
Mm-hmm.
No real talk about the other solo stuff, just mainly John.
I would have loved to have heard him talk about Live Peace in Toronto, if only because of the fact that, John was out there basically for the first time, and the reaction to Yoko.
Oh, he did bring up, the plane ride, which is where they rehearsed, but they didn't really do faithful rehearsals. They weren't very complete.
Right.
And it was really they were just doing it for the first time there on that stage.
Right.
Yeah.
So, he did bring that up.
Ken, here we are for our little trivia interlude of the things we said today.
Uh-oh.
What do Klaus Voormann and Bob Dylan have in common? They're the only two people who could make this claim.
They both played with Frank Sinatra?
Try again. They're the only two people who can make this claim.
Are the Honeymooners tied into this?
Naturally. No, they're not.
Don't really know.
They're the only two people whose faces appear on a Beatles album cover who also played at the concert for Bangladesh. Barring the Beatles, of course.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's true.
That's got to be used for something really valuable to win.
I know. Well, I'm going to talk about the trivia thing in a little bit, but going back to Saturday activities, with the Wings theme going on,
yes.
It wasn't just the 3 wings, but the 4th wing kind of flew in, and that was Denny Lane.
Aha!
He flew in for Saturday and Sunday, and he joined the band.
Was he expected or not?
No, he was an unannounced value add.
Oh my gosh!
They set him up with a table, and he jammed with the band and stuff. And so now you got 4 wings in the house, and there was just a Wings vibe to the whole thing. I mean, I get the honor of doing the Sound Alike tryouts on Saturday afternoon. We had 8 contestants. 4 of them did Wings songs. Okay, and the one who won the contest on the main stage that night was a guy who did an absolutely stunning piano version of Treat Her Gently, Lonely Old People.
Yes.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And that carried over into Sunday, taking that and putting it on steroids is the Battle of the Bands. We had 8 bands, 3 of them, just looking at my program. Listen to the names of these bands. Rock Show, Ram Army, JB, I'm Amazed. More Wing stuff. There was a band there. They were the runners-up. They did Cafe on the Left Bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not a song you hear on the radio every day.
I would like to have heard that one.
And then on my show you will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, in the nighttime jams, both Saturday and Sunday, having Denny and Lawrence and Steve on the stage, both Denny's actually. We got treated to Rockestra, and actually, Al, you were there for this. One of the very nicest things I ever heard from any Beatle Fest stage. They did a version of My Love, but nobody tackled the vocal. And Lawrence did the melody line and replaced the vocal with lead guitar, and it was just stunning. Yeah. The guy he's a world-class guitarist, no matter how you slice it, and he had such technique in there that it just, he wasn't just following the melody line note for note, but really embellishing it. It was just a beautiful, beautiful arrangement of My Love. So you can imagine and they did Jet on stage and, a bunch more Wings songs. Really a good Wings vibe. If you're a Wings fan, this was the place to be last weekend.
Can I ask, when Denny showed up, how did you guys know that he was there? I mean, did he just walked in the door and did he just walk on stage, or what happened?
Well, no, actually they had him set up just outside the ballroom was a gallery for the guests to sign, their whatever new CDs or. And it was for not so much just for the authors; those were pretty much situated outside the marketplace.
Right.
But we call them the special guests. So Joey Molland was out there signing, Lawrence Juber was out there signing, and they had an extra table. And sure enough, that's where Denny set up camp.
What I mean is, did all of a sudden he walk in the ballroom and people go?
Actually, I found out a little bit earlier than Tom did because I actually arrived at the hotel on Thursday, and so when I saw Mark Lapidus, he said, "Guess who's going to be here this weekend?" and told me that Denny had basically called him up and said, "Can I come on down?"
Yeah.
Wow.
Really, and there was another call him a walk-in. Guest. He didn't go up and play with the band or anything, but he was roaming the halls and taking pictures and signing autographs.
Who was it?
Our good friend Billy J. Kramer.
Yes.
Oh my.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So it was a good time, a real good time.
I saw the concert Saturday with the 3 Wings guys, and it was phenomenal.
Right.
And I saw that tribute. It was a tribute to Henry McCullough that they did My Love. And that was stunning. They wanted to do songs that represented the different eras of Wings that they were in. So they did Getting Closer, which was nice.
Yeah.
No huge surprises there, but it was also very cool to actually see Denny Sywell and Steve Howley drumming together on the same stage.
Yeah.
That's never been done before. So,
Ken, you would think then that they would have played A Love for You. I mean, unless there's another one. I don't know of any other officially released McCartney track where Denny Lane, Denny Sywell, and Lawrence Juber are all credited. I mean, unless you know another one.
Got to think about it.
Yeah.
No,
Keep thinking, fella.
Yeah.
Wow.
When you think about who's left of Wings, there's only outside of Joe English, who's probably never going to emerge.
Not get him.
No.
In any way, or Jeff Britton.
Yeah, that's it.
This is it.
Right.
That's it. There's nobody. There's nobody else.
And on Sunday, to have all four of them on the same stage, that was just magical.
Yeah, let's go on to Sunday then. So they were
one thing before that, before we go to Sunday, one other little kind of, as Tom would say, value added to the Saturday night concert was, and it's a non-Beatle edition, but Gene Cornish, the Rattles. Also came by. He's been involved with Birds of Paradox and with other various bands that play in the New York area. And Tom, if I remember correctly, I think he may have come by in Chicago as well.
Not sure about that. I'm not speaking to Gene Cornish, so I really don't get involved. He and I are not.
You're just friends.
No, we ain't.
Not even.
We ain't friends.
Could I just say a couple things because we kind of breezed by Jeff Slate. The performance of the 45th anniversary for 1-to-1 was amazing. It was one of the highlights for me. They did almost every single song that was performed by John in Elephant's memory. And for one thing, Jeff Slate, who did most of the lead vocals, they did Woman is the Nigger of the World. And I defy you to name any other band, a tribute band, that will actually take the time and do that song live. But and Jeff Slate's vocals were fantastic on a song like that. He also did Mother, back to back, I think. And, those are two real tough songs to sing. And the band was really just solid with the Elephant's Memory guys. And Adam Ippolito sang Imagine. And Gary Van Syok sang Hound Dog. So they did most of the songs that were done at 1-to-1, and that was a definite highlight for me. And the other thing I wanted to say was about Denny Lane, because he's also he's been working on a new album. And for Record Store Day, which we just mentioned, he's supposed to have a new single out with 2 new songs, which I previewed on my live broadcast of Every Little Thing, a song called Meant to Be and Over the Horizon, and they both sound really good. Yeah. So if Record Store Day comes, look out for that single.
Yep. Denny's also touring this year, doing city wineries and places like that. He just did one. He did New York at the end of January and is actually coming back, I want to say, maybe in May. A 40th anniversary of... or 45th, what is he doing? 40th anniversary of Wings Over America, of the album Wings Over America.
Right, he's been doing those. He's been doing those for a couple of years now. I mean, doing those kind of album tribute things.
No, he's doing the entire Band on the Run album, which he's been doing for a few years now. And he told me that for the first time, he's going to be doing the entire first Moody Blues album with that.
Wow.
So I didn't hear about Wings Over America though.
No, it's the set list centers around doing the entire Band on the Run album, but the marketing or if you go to the City Winery homepage, the celebration or the tour is in honor of the 40th anniversary of Wings Over America.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know he's also playing at Daryl's house. And that's
is he? Okay.
Yeah, where I saw him a few months ago. And I'll be giving away tickets for that on my website too.
Nice.
So, and before we get away from Saturday, since Ken was only able to be there the one day, I just wanted to acknowledge that in the discussion room, aka the Act Naturally stage. We tried to do a few different things this year. And so on Saturday, in fact, Ken participated in a Beatles radio forum. that we did with Darren DeVivo of WFUV in New York, and Lou Simon of Sirius XM Radio, and Ken's old cohort Rob Leonard of Beatles songs and Fab Four Free for All, and then that evening Ken and Kid O'Toole did a discussion of buried treasures from the solo years.
Well, we talked mainly about what we thought were the most underrated of the solo Beatle albums, picking one from each.
Right.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And then just a couple of hours later, Ken and Darren did an interview with Gary Van Syck and Adam Ippolito, which actually we've done before, which last year at the New York Fest. But still, it was some interesting, different little wrinkles there.
And I must say, because I don't think I ever met Lou Simon before, but what a great speaker.
Yes.
Yes.
He has a lot of insight.
Yeah.
And,
that's my very best friend in the world you're talking about there.
Yeah.
You guys are number 2, 3, and 4. You're number 2, 3, and 4. But he's my very best friend in the world you're talking.
Okay.
But the one thing about Lou, because we were talking about our beginnings in radio, what led us to radio, and how we first got into the Beatles, Lou said something which, we know this information all these years, but you don't really think about. He was talking about the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and how the Beatles broke so many rules. And first of all, not only did they do 5 songs in that first show, which is unheard of. Most musical acts do 1 or 2 songs. But they actually opened with a song which wasn't their single.
No.
And I never really thought about that. So.
Yeah, the first 2 songs, in fact, were album tracks. I mean, that's unheard of.
Let's get on to Sunday. Tom, you wanna give us a little talk about Sunday?
Sure. Well, the early stage presentations, Chuck Gunderson did his always informative AV presetation on the Beatle tours. I mean, I've seen him do it a few times. It's fascinating every
phenomenal.
time.
I mean, yeah, it's like the book. It's like the book. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's a delight. And then Denny Sywell did his Ram demonstration where he plays along to the backing tracks and vocal tracks of the Ram album as a drum demonstration. And then we had a guest who was only there Sunday, who I had the pleasure to host, Mr. Leon Wilds.
You did Leon. Oh, good.
A first time, and I think the only man ever to sport a tie on the Beatle Fest stage. He is just a wonderful, wonderful guy.
He is.
And he was there with his son, Michael, who's his law partner and who wrote the foreword for the book. And they were prepared not only for, to talk about this book, but, I was talking to them before we went on and said, look, here's how we'll do it. I'll introduce him and, we'll talk about the book and then he can take over and we'll save a few minutes at the end for questions and such. And they said, make sure when you introduce us and talk about the firm that, that we're obviously still a fully functioning immigration firm. Not that they needed the shill or the plug or anything. They said, make sure you let them know that Yoko is still a close friend and a client. And one of our, we have many, many clients, including Mrs. Trump, Melania Trump. And one of the things I had even told you, Al, going in, I said, I hope when we get to the questions and answers, there's no one in the crowd that derails what should be a very good and informative John Lennon, lecture with, with the politic of the day.
Yeah,
it's just not the place for it.
He told me that he represented Donald Trump too. So you said Melania, but it's actually he's done.
Well, she's an immigrant, so he made me make that point.
He did the immigration thing with Melania. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So I put that in, and all it proved is that they were way smarter than me and got ahead of it. Because after a very informative session and a couple of good personal stories, we went to the crowd, and people were asking questions that were, for lack of a better term, on point. They were about John and about the case and about Yoko and about that time. And we had time for one more question, and here it came. What do you think of President Trump's, blah, 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 blah. And they, by getting in front of that thing with Melania Trump, they said, well, while we might not agree with her politic, and they basically put some voice of reason to it, saying, remember, the president doesn't make the laws, the Congress does. The president can, issue the executive orders to enforce or to escalate, things like that. And, right now is not the time or place to go into all that either. But basically, here was an 86-year-old man basically saying, I got this. Okay?
Yeah.
And it did not let the, an otherwise really good mood in the room deteriorate. It didn't let it escalate. It was, to say the guy is lucid and on point is an understatement.
Yeah.
But he basically said, at the end, like, does that clear it up for you?
Yeah. He also was on with Lawrence O'Donnell. I think it was last year, and he said that President Obama's immigration policies were actually related to what he did with John. So Did he talk about that? He
did say that some of the precedent that was set in the case, about accessing freedom of information records to ultimately counter sue or file a counter claim, and basically challenge the government to say, if this is what you're throwing down, how come it didn't happen to these other, I think it was 2,300 people? They set the tone as they did in the book for anyone that's read it, and it is a highly recommended book. They set the tone up front, without getting into any legalese. Anyone can understand these two words: selective prosecution. They were going after him, and that was it.
Right. It's an excellent book. I've read the book too, and
it was a wonderful book.
Yeah, it explains. It's really. I mean, it's the go-to book to explain that case. I mean, other people have written about those times, but he's the man.
No, this is the view from the captain's chair.
Right.
Let's face it.
Exactly. Exactly. Speaking of politics, and I don't mean to change the subject, but did anybody see the reaction to Denny Sywell's photo taken in front of Trump Tower? And I'm trying to remember what the sign he had, but it was not a pro-Trump sign. And I posted it on my page, and I also posted it in my Beatle News and Commentary. And there were some people who were not real pleased about seeing that photo. And they said, "What's the Beatle reaction to this?" And I said, "Denny Sywell is a Wings drummer." I'm just bringing this up. I noticed the picture is gone now, and I don't know if he pulled the picture offline or what. That was kind of an interesting thing. Go ahead, Ken.
It's a problem whenever any celebrity of any kind says something political. And some of their fans are going to be against it, regardless of what side you're on.
Right.
Because they take the attitude of, you're a musician, you're a celebrity. You're not a politician. Why are you saying anything political?
Well,
and, I know in the case of Lawrence Juber has posted a lot of stuff, and his wife Hope, and they get a lot of backlash on that. And Jack Douglas. Oh my God.
Yes, I've seen Jack Douglas daily. Says some is very anti-Trump, as is Howard Kalin. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, a lot of musicians that are very anti-Trump, and and some people don't like that, especially people that are pro-Trump don't like that. So let's get off that. I don't want to.
Good idea.
I don't want to turn this show into a political. I just wanted to mention that had happened, since we do talk about newsy type things. Go ahead.
As a matter of fact, changing the subject.
Go ahead.
I didn't want to get out of Sunday without mentioning that, as I said, we tried to do some different things this year, and a few years back, our old friend Martin Lewis, who in the Sound-Alike contest would always say what, Tom?
Al Sussman of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, opportunity knocks.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He would always, or actually, Beetle opportunity knocks.
Beetle opportunity knocks.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
But anyway, several years ago, Martin came up with the idea of having a press conference with the Ruddles, or in this case, 3/4 of the Ruddles,
right?
Because Eric Idle wasn't there, but Neil Ennis and Ricky Fattar and John Halsey were all there, and they had various kind of media, including me from Ruddle Fan Magazine, and we did a press conference. So in earlier this year, in trying to kind of get some different angles for the discussion room, I thought, why don't we have a Q&A with the Weaklings?
Mm-hmm.
And I brought it up to Marty Scott, who handles them for Gem Records, and he thought it was a great idea. In fact, originally we had thought of doing a press conference, but they didn't. Marty said they really didn't have anything to really publicize, so we just made it a Q&A. And so we did that in the discussion room. The room was packed.
Mm-hmm.
And the Weaklings came in dressed up in the same suits that they have on the cover of the new album, and I was able to get away from my normal habit of asking all the questions, and after like just a couple of introductory questions, opened it up to the crowd, and it was and we ended up going for about an hour. It was very, very successful. And then about an hour and a half later, they appeared on the main stage in the ballroom in concert. That was also on Sunday afternoon, and it went over very, very well.
Let me just throw in something. If Glenn Burtnick is listening out there, Glenn, you guys got to put out a live album. That's all there is to it. Because everything I've heard sounds absolutely fantastic, and so I really hope that's in the cards someday.
Well, they were talking about it. They were talking about it when they played at Daryl's house.
Oh, were they?
They love the acoustics there. Especially.
Well, I mean, just in general, their live sound. I wasn't thinking about specifically at Daryl's house, but their live sound is just so good. They just sound so good as a live band, and
they're very tight. They're very
right,
tight,
and it would be great to have that on CD or on DVD for that matter.
Yeah. How would you feel about a cassette? Because their latest promo piece is a cassette,
that's right. Yeah,
with 3 bonus songs on it.
Right.
From the second album.
Yeah, second album.
I know about that. I mean, no, I'm talking about a full album with a full live album, a live concert.
Don't go away. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Tom is.
I think he may be retrieving the cassette.
Call it Exhibit A.
You have
the most recent addition to my cassette collection.
Yes.
The Weaklings, this is their second album.
Right.
And on cassette, it comes with 3 bonus cuts, which are, it won't be long, all I've got to do and I'm down. 3, we'll call them garden variety Beatles songs. Anyone familiar with the Weaklings knows their dip into the Beatle catalog is not the garden variety songs. It's things like Of the Love.
Yeah.
Because I Know You Love Me So and things like that. But there it is, right there.
Yes. Yes,
right.
He's showing it for our listeners. He's showing it on his Skype camera, which none of you can see.
Right.
Put it on the website.
But anyway, it's available. I believe that's available through the Weaklings website.
Anyway.
Yes, that it is.
Yeah, I also do too.
I just wanted to ask Tom one question.
Mm-hmm.
Because on Saturday I got to see the last half hour of the trivia contest, and I was really impressed with how much the contestants knew there, and they're all fairly young. But what I was really surprised at, most of all, was how many questions you asked that pertain to the American Beatles albums.
Yeah.
I would think that anyone that's young now getting into the Beatles would be used to the British albums as they came out on CD. And yet, I was wondering if you could explain to me why you mixed quite a lot. At least you were talking about introducing the Beatles on VJ. I wouldn't expect anybody young, really, to know that kind of history.
What I've done is, over the years, I try and write more and more questions, and I've somehow put them miraculously into chapters of, like-kind topics. So we have a whole chapter of questions on the Christmas album. We have a whole chapter of questions that are song lyrics, and those are always good because you can do it two ways. You can either give the lyric and say, what song is this from, or give the song and say, tell me the opening line of this song. They cut both ways. So you gotta have enough for the casual fans versus the hardcores. And those American album questions that you're referring to, Ken, all came from a chapter that it was called The British Are Coming, and it was about the Beatles invasion. So it was about Meet the Beatles, and it was about the Ed Sullivan Show. And it was about Washington, D.C. And then it was about that, the string of questions was something along the lines of, what was the name of the third Beatle album released in America? Well, that, of course, the Beatles' second album. What was in what year did Beatles 65 come out? Well, that'd be 64. Things like that, just to kind of keep them a little humorous, a little fresh. So that was fun. It was kind of interesting. Somebody, one of the contestants, sent me a link this week to his YouTube page, where apparently he had to show the whole world that he was in the trivia contest. And, of course, now I have to write all new questions for next year because all the good questions are sitting out there for the public to go learn. But, and this is, again, Al, make me get a Facebook page. Make me get a Twitter. Make me get a YouTube page. Right, people.
As I keep saying, you show great wisdom in staying away from social media. The guy was nice enough, like in the heading of the YouTube thing, to say, and here's my third video of the weekend. He showed whatever Klaus Vorman or the band or whatever, and he says, and the trivia contest, always fun, always a highlight of the weekend. I'm eating this up right now. Impeccably hosted by Tom Frangione, blah, 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 and I'm just eating this up, right? And then, of course, the trolls start weighing in. Yeah. And, it got to a point where, again, one of the chapters it's called Number One. And it's all about, the answer to every one of these questions is a number one record. Right.
Okay? By definition, the most popular songs that they ever released. Okay, so it evolves around the One album, which two songs from the One album came from Revolver. Stuff like that, okay? It's all about number one records and the One album. People are, well, what's with all the number one questions? It's like, okay, A, shut up, okay? Okay, it's not my position to tell them, by the way, we had to get out of there in a hurry because we got a half-hour late start. You know why? Because something way more interesting than me asking trivia questions ran long at Drummers Symposium. Right. And guess what? When you have to make things move along faster, you go with not the hardest questions you have. You don't have to make them, like kid-proof, like, what color is the cover of the White Album, stuff like that. But, you want things that people will answer. And by the way, it was a really big crowd Saturday, not just at the trivia contest. And you know what? Me stumping a whole room full of people with questions, that's not good entertainment, okay? Having them compete and make it interesting is what makes it fun. And by the way, we had our own little slice of Beatle Fest history.
Yes, on Friday night.
The way the contest runs, for any of you that haven't been there, is we pick 4 contestants, and 5 points or 5 right answers wins the game. We play 4 rounds, and then the 4 winners come back for a playoff or a final to come to a grand prize.
Right.
We had gotten to the finals and got to a 4-way tie of 4 right answers each. It came down to a winner-take-all question. Okay, it was anyone's game to win on one question, and that's what made it fast-paced. That's what made it fun. But as Ken can tell you, we had even more fun with it, invoking more honeymooners trivia, and setting things up.
Oh, yes.
So we had a lot of fun with it. It was a good time. We had a crowd of enthusiastic people that were cheering on, contestants, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be me saying, "Look what I read that you might not have."
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
not the purpose of the game.
I looked while you were talking. I looked up those YouTube videos, and they have one of them has over 2,000 videos or views in a week. So that's not too bad.
Except now I got to write all new questions for next year. I think we're going to put this guy up here and say, make sure you run camera on this, because what I want to do is send this out to you, to your viewership, and say, here's why we don't play Let's Watch Tom Stump the whole room, because people will be walking out, and it's no fun.
We'll have to invoke the old Martin Lewis rule about no recording of.
Oh no, yeah, I don't mind people recording it, but you know what? Don't put the whole freaking thing.
Yeah.
There goes my whole question. I had we went through the whole chapter of whatever number 1 questions. Well, I'm not going to be able to use those for a few more years till people forget them.
Right.
You're not going to tell me that you recycle old questions.
Of course we do.
Every year is supposed to be new and fresh.
Well, actually, there is one chapter that is always new and fresh. It's called Current Events. It's all stuff that happened since the last fest. Okay, so which Beatle project won a Grammy last month?
Okay.
That's it's a fair question.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay.
So we do refresh them.
Okay.
But with the one questions, was the question of questions in that video?
It was, and that's why I get upset when people do this. Okay. Yeah. And we won't blast it out to your thousands of listeners, because now the question will have no cachet whatsoever, and I will win far fewer drinks at the bar.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. I guess if you want to hear the questions, you'll have to go to Beatlefest to hear it, or whatever.
Yeah, I guess you will.
Come to Chicago.
Come to Chicago. There you go.
In the middle of
Won't you please
August.
come to Chicago?
Yep. My kind of town, or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, gentlemen, I think we've run up to the barrier of time. I think we've run out of time. Thank you very much for taking the time. And anybody want to say anything? One last thing before we kick it off and depart.
One thing about Lawrence Juber.
Yes.
As we've talked about, he has a brand new CD out called LJ Can't Stop Playing the Beatles. It's his 3rd CD of Beatle covers. And on my website, this coming Friday, which is the 17th of March, I'm doing a special contest where I'm giving away 3 copies of the CD signed by Lawrence, and 1 grand prize winner will also win his recent book, Guitar with Wings, which came out.
A beauty.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a beauty.
But a lot of never-before-seen photos of Paul and the band during Lawrence's time, the last lineup of Wings. So that's on my website, which is kenmichaelsradio.com. And as always, visit the website for weekly Beatles trivia.
Funny how you managed to sneak that in there, Ken.
Yeah, really.
Jeez. That was pretty damn sneaky.
He was at the fest. He was at the fest. Come on. You tie it together. It's a perfect set.
Okay. Anyway, I will say the CD is wonderful. It really is.
It is.
So even if you don't enter the contest, it's a beautiful CD. It really is. Al, do you want to say anything before we kick off for the night?
Just as Tom was saying before, I think it was a very, very enjoyable fest, and I guess probably the only little possible negative might be that the ballroom. At the Hyatt Regency Jersey City is a little bit on the small side, and so it was really packed. It was jam packed for the concert on certainly the concert on Saturday night.
Okay.
So that would be the only little small problem, but otherwise it was it's a wonderful venue, and so I'm really hoping that that Mark will bring the fest back there next year.
You didn't get an indication that was the case? I mean, I would think after the problems with the previous venue that they're going to stay there. I mean, I heard a lot of good things about that place. So I would.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so, but of course, there's no guarantees. And as a matter of fact, all of the people the people that keep whining about, oh, why don't you go back to the Secaucus Hotel?
Oh,
Guess
please.
what? The Secaucus Hotel no longer exists. It is not only was the exposition area where the flea market used to be torn down, the hotel's closed now. So,
it has ceased to be.
Yeah,
it has ceased to exist.
This is courtesy of Beth and Steve Shorten, who took a bunch of photos there and posted them over the weekend. And so that's hey, time marches on.
Time marches on. Yeah, those things happen. Folks,
one last thing, I just want to say thanks to everyone who came up to me and probably Al to talk about things we said today, and we got a lot of fans who came up to us so much they really liked the show, as well as my other show, Every Little Thing, and it was great. Thanks to all of you.
In fact, on Thursday, shortly after I got there, a fellow named Mike Narr stopped me in the hall, and I recognized his name immediately.
Yeah,
I know Mike.
I saw Mike's name several times online. Yeah.
Yeah, and stopped to say hello.
Hi,
and
Mike.
Joe Gorman and a bunch of other people who you only know by names.
Right.
But it's nice.
I know
it's
fun when
put
that
a face to them.
That happened. That happened in Vegas too. A couple of people that knew me that I had talked to came up and introduced themselves, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. So we are out of time, and I would love this discussion to go on for hours and hours and hours. But I'm gonna be the meanie and cut it off and say, if you want to get a hold of us, you can write to the show at thingswesaidtoday@radioshow@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page, Things We Said Today, Beatles Radio Fans. We have a Twitter account, Things We Said Fab. Each of us has Facebook pages. We have email addresses. I'll give out mine real quick. It's BeatlesExaminer@gmail.com. Al, your turn.
You can get in touch with me real quick and real easy. Facebook, Al Sussman. Twitter, @ASUSS49, or through Beatlefan Magazine, www.beatlefan.com. And I'll give Alan's contact info as well. On Facebook, he's Alan Kozin, or his alter ego, Alan Kozin Remixed. And also through the show page, and Alan also has a Twitter presence. I believe it's just @Kozin.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
I believe that's it.
Okay. And Ken, your email address?
everylittlething@att.net.
I want to thank our guest, Tom Frangione, and thank all of you for taking the time to listen. And for Ken Michaels, Al Sussman, and Tom Frangione, this is Steve Marinucci saying we will see you next time.